what harm would it do to them to just ban the official? It doesn't. It's a bit baffling, really. It makes a great, fantastic statement. It's what is deserved when a sort of an incident of this manner sort of happens.
Because I think that is a limitation of his as a manager, but it's also sort of, it's not all doom and gloom for him. It's like winning. Come on.
Oh God, no, I can't do this, man. What is up, guys, and welcome back to Anything But United. I'm joined by James. James, how you doing?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, not bad.
And I'm joined by Henry. Henry, how you doing, mate?
Not too bad, thanks, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. So let's get straight into it. So basically, in this week's news, first up, there's been an incident, obviously an alleged incident at the PSG game this week, where there was a racist remark allegedly again made by the fourth official to the Istanbul Başakşehir assistant manager. It's kicked up a massive fuss, understandably so, because it's an official, and well, any form of racism is just beyond anyone in this world. I can't believe it's happening right now. James, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I don't think my thoughts are any different to anyone else, really. I think it's just disgraceful, isn't it? I think it's bad enough players and fans racially abusing other people, but an actual official of UEFA, who's their main campaign that they're doing, I think they care less about football than they do about tackling racism at the minute from all the campaigning, and then it just takes you another step backwards, doesn't it? It seems like every week we're getting some sort of racially motivated incident. We've had two in this week, haven't we? We've obviously had Millwall fans and then the UEFA assistant. So I think it's good, the action that we've seen from players, especially from those two incidents. But for PSG and Istanbul to both walk off, I thought that was really good. I think England should have done that when they were playing abroad the other year, and the game had to be stopped a couple of times, and they didn't walk off. I thought that was a bit poor on their behalf. So they're leading the way. It was a good response. But yeah, it's just a sign of the times at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. And another sign of the times is, I'll come to you on this, Henry, the talk of a 10-game ban. That's all for this official who made the remark. A 10-game ban.
Yeah.
It's disgraceful. So what do you think of it?
Well, I mean, what does that say about sort of the way they're dealing with everything and sort of the false image that they give off with, as you say, sort of the campaigns that they've been running? They've been so thorough with these campaigns, the respect campaign and whatever else, trying to get racism out. And then when an actual incident occurs, they seem to almost shirt the situation when they could really make a statement. I'm not sure why a 10-game ban is a 10-game ban is the only sort of thing they're thinking about when, what harm would it do to them to just ban the official? It doesn't. It's a bit baffling, really. It makes a great, fantastic statement. It's what is deserved when a sort of an incident of this manner sort of happens. I think the saddest thing about the whole thing is just sort of the lack of surprise about it all. I think we're all used to incidents like this. We've seen, racist incidents. Italy, I think, sort of springs to mind, whether rightly or wrongly, as a sort of a country that's struggled sort of in a big way with it. And obviously, we know throughout our press and in England, we've got problems with sort of more covert and sort of inferred racism rather than sort of overt forms, which we're sort of seeing in Italy and now obviously throughout sort of Europe as well. But yeah, that was the sad thing for me, is the lack of surprise at the incident. But, as you say as well, with the 10-game ban, I think, what's the point? Ban him for life.
Yeah, no, I say that's fair. James, I'll come to you on a similar matter. We saw Millwall fans booing the players taking the knee this week as well. I mean, we think that the problem isn't as big in this country, but it clearly is. So, what are we going to do to stop this happening?
I don't know. There was only 2,000 fans in that stadium, so it's going to be very easy to find out who was booing. And I think you find out who was booing and you make an example of them. I don't know how you do that, but you either just completely humiliate them or just do something that's going to really sort of affect the way they live their life. And I think that's the only way you can do it, because people are racially abusing other people and seeing no consequences at all, especially in the mainstream media. Like, you look at this PSG incident. Oh, he racially abused someone, so he's not going to be able to go to a football match for 10 games. I bet he's absolutely gutted, isn't he? fire him.
Yeah.
Make him completely unemployable to anyone else within football, at least. I get send him on these racial awareness courses, but they do nothing. Come on, we all know they do nothing.
Yeah.
If you sit a racist down and tell him for 10 hours in one day, don't be racist, here's why, he's probably not going to change his mind, is he? That's like someone sitting you down for a full day and telling you, here's why you should support Man City. You're still not going to support City, are you? Yeah. You don't change these people, so you make an example of them. We've tried everything. Realistically, we've tried everything. So why don't we just try scaring them into not racially abusing people? It's sad that it's got to that point, but we need to do something drastic now, because it's gone. If it's gone from fans and just regular people to actual officials of UEFA doing it in broad daylight in front of cameras and microphones, then you've got to be taking really drastic measures now.
Yeah, well, I'll come to you on the PSG incident a little bit more, Henry. In terms of, we probably wouldn't have noticed what was going on if there was a crowd in the ground, because we heard it all mic'd up, and you can hear everything that's happening. So, I mean, is the kind of technology now saving face essentially? Because it wasn't 20 years ago when it was still happening. So do referees now need to be mic'd up? And it's a fourth official that's been racist. Do they need to be mic'd up?
I mean, it's a good point, isn't it? But the fact we've even come to this is just shocking. It's talking about sort of legally sort of a full surveillance, sort of having to watch match officials just in case they do something out of order, which is shocking, really. I mean, when you first sort of put officials in the place they're in, they should be trusted at that point to be put in that position. I mean, officials are a big part of the game. They're there for player safety in some ways, whether that's emotionally through topics like this. They should be there to protect players from incidents like racism. And obviously, when you've got officials actually, performing these sort of acts of racism themselves, I mean, you're starting to lose faith really in not only the match officials as well, but even higher than that in the large organisations. Whether people have any trust in UEFA or FIFA or whoever, anyway, I'll be very surprised if anyone does have much trust in those organisations to tackle subjects like this. But I think that's the thing, really, the sad thing. I mean, should the technology be put in place? I mean, you've got a great point there, to make it more obvious and whatever, to get clear examples, because it's all a bit murky. I mean, every situation there's sort of people saying, but did he actually say it? And there's always these arguments going on trying to watch back footage. I remember there was the Neymar incident, wasn't there, between Neymar and a player over there, and I don't think we ever got massive clarity on what was actually said there. I don't think the sort of the camera angles perhaps gave it complete justice. So, you might have a point there. The technology to be put in place, perhaps could be something they look at. But I think the sad thing is we're even talking about doing so.
I mean, it just goes to show the day and age we're at the moment, where UEFA have all these campaigns to kick out racism from the game, and yet they're culpable themselves, because essentially, they're the employer and they haven't solved the problem, and it's their job to solve the problem in the first place. So we'll move on from that now. Still kind of leading with Champions League. Inter Milan are out of the Champions League after spending all that money and effort and time on a top quality manager and some top players, and they've been dumped out bottom of the group, not going to get Europa League, behind Shakhtar Donetsk after drawing 0-0 at home. James, what do you think of that?
I want to hand this over to Henry first, because I know, well, I'm fairly sure you're a pretty big fan of Lukaku and Conte as well. So I'd really like to see what your sort of thoughts are on Inter Milan at the minute.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way you can sort of shy away from it. It's piss poor. It's very, very bad. I don't know what else there is to say about it. I mean, you look at that group. Gladbach have done sort of well. You've got to respect what they've sort of done. And obviously Real Madrid. Real Madrid were always going to, I think, scrape through that group no matter what. Real Madrid are Real Madrid at the end of the day. And then Shakhtar as well. You think, that should be a breeze for Inter, really. They should finish second in the group, and at least maybe should sort of tussle with Real Madrid for that top spot, but it hasn't been the case at all. I think Conte's got a bit of a struggle in Europe. I don't know if that's a mental block or whatever, is going wrong there. It'd be interesting to see what Inter do now, especially with Conte. As you say, he spent quite a bit of money. They've tasked him with this rebuild, which, early parts of last season, the last season just gone, you thought they were really going to challenge for the sort of Scudetto, and they obviously sort of fell away in the end. And you'll be thinking that the sort of board are there now are looking at sort of challenging for titles now. That's obviously the goal they want to be aiming for. Whether Conte's that man, I'm not sure. Has he? We've seen sort of the fallout that happened at Chelsea, with the board and sort of a toxicity sort of forming around him. It's similar in the way that sort of Jose Mourinho goes out at clubs at a time, especially the way he did at Manchester United. It was quite a similar fallout. And that's sort of happening at Inter now. It is extremely poor. Obviously, we saw Lukaku clearing it off the line. Good clearance from Rom from the Alexis Sanchez header. But yeah, no, I don't know what else to say other than it's really poor, and I'm gonna have to concede this one. I still think Romelu Lukaku's like a world-class striker for me. I don't think this changes anything, but there's definitely problems at Inter, and I think a lot of them could be put down to the manager.
James, it was as Henry's just mentioned, it was Romelu Lukaku's big head that stopped Inter from going through into the knockout stages. Is it funny or a bit sad? Because obviously we liked Rom at United, but you just couldn't write it, could you? The two players that leave, stop them from going through.
It's unfortunate, I'll say that, because I adored Lukaku at United. I think that the day he signed, other than Pogba and maybe Ibrahimovic, I've not been more excited for a signing in a long time. So I was disappointed when it didn't work out. You can't even say it didn't really work out for him. He was still very good for us. Ole clearly didn't like him, and I think he's sort of showing what he is in a way, because we saw in the Europa League final last year. Obviously, he was unlucky to score that own goal, but he didn't play particularly well. And now in big games again, he seems to be struggling. So he's very clear. He's a bit of a flat track bully in a way that Serie A suits him, in that he can very much bulldoze teams. It's not a league renowned for sort of pace. It's very, very physical, that league, which suits him perfectly. So he's doing very well, and I'm very happy for him for that. But what I will say with Inter is that it's sort of a silver lining, because Conte is very much a manager who thrives under conditions where he's playing once a week. You see, one of his title wins with Juventus came when Juventus were not in Europe at all. He won the league with Chelsea the year after they finished ninth, so they weren't in Europe at all. So, that's two times where he's really thrived, only playing once a week. And I think that is a limitation of his as a manager, but it's also it's not all doom and gloom for Inter Milan. I think with that out of the way, and with the quality of squad they've got, there's no doubt Conte's not a good manager either. He's an incredible manager. And I think Juventus aren't looking very good this year. AC Milan will probably drop off at some point. I think this is just a good run of form. So I think if they win Serie A this year, then that game against Shakhtar Donetsk will be probably a blessing in disguise for everyone at the club.
Henry, perfectly kind of leading on from that, as James mentioned, AC are top of the league, and sort of, I'd argue, showing Inter and Juve up at the moment. Where do Inter go from here? Because AC are currently about to go through in their group with Lille, maybe top. They've basically destroyed everyone in their group. Obviously came from 2-0 down against Celtic as well. So where do Inter go from here? Because their kind of rivals are showing them up completely.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Obviously, you can't just sit back and let it happen. Whether what Inter, sort of what their attitude will be, whether they sort of give Conte more time, I'm not sure. As you know, Conte's a sort of short-term manager, and his sort of short-term spell is almost up, if you know what I mean by that. He's had this little window now where you sort of thought they would have done well. I mean, obviously, I think they'll probably give him this season and see where they end up then. And that's sort of when the initial sort of 2 seasons and the sort of the short-term spell where you'd expect Conte to do well would then be up. But yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what they do. I don't know. They've got to do something. Obviously, you can't just sit around. And I'm sure the Inter Milan fans won't be happy just to sit around, especially with sort of AC Milan sort of doing as well as they're doing with sort of resurgence. We know how much they've struggled in recent years. I know Inter fans won't like seeing their sort of resurgence and their success sort of overshadowing what they're now doing. But yeah, it's tough to see. Obviously, there's quite a few transfers that Conte made that are questionable. I know, obviously, back at Chelsea, I remember when he signed Bakayoko. I think he signed Morata, didn't he? I think Danny Drinkwater. There's a host of names he signed that were just baffling signings in the end. And I think there's quite a few of those at Inter. I mean, Christian Eriksen's come in. To be fair to him, a signing I thought would be a great signing. Eriksen, I thought, still had a lot to offer, and maybe sort of had just fallen out of sort of favourite Tottenham and would go to Inter and do a great job, but he's obviously struggled and looks like in January he could be off again. I mean, it's poor. You know, the transfer policy maybe isn't as good as first thought. And yeah, what they do, I apologise, I can't answer that. I don't know what they'll do or who they'll look at. Obviously, Maurizio Pochettino's still kicking around, but I don't know who else they'd look at other than that. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't think they'll just sit around and see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say they're in a bit of a mess at the moment, but I'm sure knowing them as a big club, they'll figure it out. Moving on from them to someone that's in AC Milan's group in the Europa League, Celtic. Yeah, let's all laugh at Celtic because they are a complete shambles at the moment. James, I know you have a few comments on the club as a whole and what they're doing. So what are your thoughts on their season so far?
I think it's quite hilarious, really. I mean, it's more hilarious the fan base point of view because I think they won 10 leagues titles in a row, didn't they? They got that landmark, and then the one season where they're second in the league, oh no, end of the world, and they might exit out of Europa League, which is probably their level anyway. They've been disappointing, yes, but the fans are like marching on the stadium, that like and stuff like that. Like there's genuine. I've never seen a fan base throw their toys out the pram more. You can see they've become so accustomed to winning that I imagine they wouldn't even be able to name another Scottish team other than Celtic because they're that up their own arses that it is Celtic or nothing. We win the league because no other team possibly can. We're Celtic. That's their mentality, and I think they were just getting a little bit too big for their boots. They get so used to winning that it just comes naturally, and now they're being put in their place, and we're really seeing them throw the toys out the pram. So it's entertaining to say the least. I think. I mean, I've always been sort of Rangers over Celtic. I don't really know why, but yeah, it's just nice to see a bit of change, isn't it?
Is this karma, Henry? Is this karma for the Celtic fans for their sense of entitlement for the last 10 years, where Rangers went down into, I believe, the League Two, and almost went bust, and had to essentially restart again, and now they're absolutely destroying them in the league? Is this karma?
Yeah, probably. I think, yeah, perhaps. I mean, but I think it is karma. But I think you're naive as a Celtic fan if you sat there when Rangers got demoted to League Two or whatever to think that they were never going to come back. I mean, Rangers were always going to come back. The size of that club. You've got the Ibrox Stadium. It's quite a big football club, Rangers. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Scottish football in general. It's perhaps poor of me to say that, but I'm not at all. And when the fans of Celtic make claims like we could get top four in England and absolute rubbish like that if you put them in our league, I mean, it's just crap. I mean, I think they'd be in a relegation scrap. I'm not even joking. I think they might be in the Championship. I genuinely believe that. Obviously, they get into Europe with the way that sort of it's structured. If you do well in the Scottish League, you end up in Europe, which is fair enough. But I genuinely don't think they'd be anywhere near Europe if they were in the Premier League. But yeah, no, I think you'd be naive if you sort of sat as a Celtic fan and thought Rangers were never going to come back, and now it's happened. But yeah, to be honest, I'm not a big fan of Scottish football, and when James says that we prefer Celtic, I don't know who I prefer. I mean, Rangers have got Gerrard, haven't they? So I don't care for either of them, to be fair. I really don't. But there you go. Yeah, no, it's naivety, and yeah, it's very, very childish reaction from their fans as well.
James, a 10th league title last year, and now second, 13 points off. I know they got 2 games in hand, but they just drew against Kilmarnock at home at the weekend, so it looks like they might not win those. How can you be, as a club, how can you go from winning the league title to being, especially in Scottish football, which, no offence to, if Scottish fans are watching this, I respect your league, but it is a bum league. How have they gone from 10th league title to 1 point in the Europa League and 13 points behind their rivals?
The Europe thing doesn't really surprise me because when the past 10 years when they've been winning all these leagues, have they done anything other than beating Barcelona with their only shot on goal that game? Have they done anything notable in the Champions League at all or Europa League? Have they got past the quarterfinals in either of those competitions? I could be very wrong, but from my personal memory, I don't remember ever seeing Celtic do anything notable on a European stage, and it's been a bit annoying for me because I want British teams to do well in Europe. I've always sort of rooted for Celtic in Europe, not necessarily the Scottish League, but when they're in Europe, I always want them to do well, and they never seem to. So I think that's not surprising. But the whole Scottish League thing, there's got to be an element of players just being complacent now. You know, they've won 10 titles in a row. What's motivating them anymore? Like the players like Scott Brown and players like that who have been there all their career. What is the motivation now? They're just doing the same thing over and over again. It must just be so boring and so mentally draining. Just sit like I get it's nice to win, but when there's no competition around you, what's the point? You know, it's like winning. It's like winning a push-up competition against a bunch of amputees. It's like it's fun, yeah, for a little bit when you win it, but like once you carry on winning, there's just what's the point? Do you know what I mean? So like Odson Edward doesn't want to be there. He's tried to leave for the past 2 windows and just no one's bought him. You know, have they got any other notable players? Dembele left as soon as he could because it was so boring. Listen, I've just put that comment out of my mind. I'm trying to carry on now.
I'm sorry for any amputees that are watching this. James has just insulted a whole group of people.
They're not going to be assaulted. They know they wouldn't win a push-up competition. I'm not being funny. Come on.
Oh God, no, I can't do this, man.
If any are watching and want to prove me wrong, then fair enough. I'll genuinely I will respect that so heavily. But yeah, Celtic winning league, boring. Players don't care anymore. That's why. And Neil Lennon shit.
So I've got to gather myself after that. Jesus Christ, James. Anyway, I was going to ask you a quick question about James mentioned about Scott Brown.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a quick question about him because to cap it off, because you know I have opinions on him. I think he's a crap player, and I think he's a bum. And he's 36. He just goes around kicking people. So, what do you think of him as a player? Because I want to talk about this because he gets touted as the Roy Keane of Celtic. He's not that good, is he?
Nah, of course he's not. I mean, that's ridiculous. I don't know who said that, but yeah, you can't compare him to players like Roy Keane. I mean, there's a reason why, with all due respect, and I'm going to probably get pelters for this, but there's a reason why he's playing in the Scottish League. There always is for those players who play over there. And so some of them break out of it, with all due respect to me. You know, you get, obviously, Virgil van Dijk played for Celtic, and then there's other players that sort of come out of that league that have done well. But as you said, you know, he's an old man now. But I can see why he's loved in some ways. I mean, if we had like a player, obviously, if he was of that quality at United, I think, you know, no one would like him. But you know what I mean? If there's a player with, you know, it's like, to be fair, actually, I get the comparison to Keane. Obviously, on a playing level, he's nowhere near sort of the quality of Keane. But when you've got a player who does go around kicking people, it's fun to watch as a fan of that club. So I can sort of see why he's loved as a sort of a leader and a bit of a bastard. But yeah, no, he's not, for me, not a fantastic player. To be honest, I don't watch him week in, week out. You know, I haven't watched the Scottish football for a very, very long time, but yeah, no, I wouldn't say he's that good. But I can see why, you know, there's sort of an affection for him.
Yeah, no, I'd say that's fair, but I don't like him at all. He's a crap.
Do you know what I will say though? About the thing I like about Scott Brown is every Old Firm derby, you can guarantee if you put a tenner on him or Morelos to get carded, you get an instant money within 5 minutes. You've got your money back. So that's what I like about him. He's a constant flow of income for me personally.
Reliable.
Yeah. Fantastic. I think we'll call it there. So guys, if you've been watching, make sure to send your push-up videos in. If you are an amputee, we want to see what you can do. Yeah, I think we'll call it there. Henry, thanks for joining us.
No, thanks for having me, boys. Been good.
And James, thanks for joining me again.
Yeah, been a pleasure.
And we'll see you guys soon. Make sure to like and subscribe.